G'day and welcome to another edition of Hef's Homebrew. Well, it's been a while since my last brew. I think it's been nearly 3 months actually to the day since I brewed my Mexican lager. Since then, that keg is empty. The keg of Schwarzbier, the dark lager, that's also empty. So all I've got pouring at the moment is a keg of Aussie lager. It's the second batch that I did, and I think there's only about half a keg of that left. So I do have some brewing to do. This one is going to be a coffee milk stout. Again, it's a partial mash or easy extract, as Little John has been calling them. This one, the recipe, I've kind of used three sources to come up with it. First of all, if you have seen my videos of my coffee milk stouts before, they were done with the Blackrock oatmeal stout tins as the base. I've done 3 of those brews now actually, and they've all been really good. So I've kind of used that as a starting point. I've also taken inspiration from Little John's Easy Extract Milk Stout, and also from Skid Baxter's partial mash chocolate porter, which I do need to get around to brewing at some point. But anyway, this is the coffee milk stout. It's going to be a 23 litre batch, hoping for a starting gravity of somewhere around 1050 to 1055, and then hoping that she'll finish kind of about 1016. I know it's not going to get super low, but something that'll give me around a 5% beer in the keg. Let's have a look at the ingredients, starting with the grains. So in here, I've got 1.3 kilos of Golden Promise. I was hoping to get medium crystal, but I actually couldn't get medium crystal. So I've got 50 grams of dark crystal and 100 grams of light crystal, 200 grams of light chocolate malt, 150 grams of roasted barley, and 50 grams of carafa. I'm going to, that's double milled, going to mash that for 45 minutes at around 66, 67 degrees. Then we've got the dry ingredients. Sorry, I'll just pop that over there. I've got some light dry malt. At the moment, I'm thinking 1.5 kilos of light dry malt. I've also got from Kegland, because the tin I used was the oatmeal stout, and doing a little bit of reading and knowing what beers, commercial beers I like, going to add some oats, and rather than get drawn into worrying about actually using oats, real oats, I'm going to give this a go, which is from Kegland. It's the dried hydrolysed oat extract. It's a 1 kilo bag, but I'm only going to use 200 grams of that. And I'm also going to use some lactose, 300 grams of lactose. So that's the grain and the dry ingredients. Hops, East Kent Goldings, I'm going to do a 60-minute boil, 25 grams at 60 minutes, and then another 25 grams at 20 minutes. Hoping for somewhere in the low 20s IBUs, 22, 23, 24, somewhere around there. And going to ferment with 2 packs of Nottingham. There we go, long way around. Used Nottingham before, and that's worked really well in the stout. So that's all the ingredients. As I said, 45-minute mash, 60-minute boil. Should be fairly simple. Once I've done the mash and the boil, as if you've seen any of my videos before, I'm just going to pour cold water. It's in the fridge at the moment. So if you are using this method and you don't have a work chiller, chuck your water in the fridge at least 24 hours before. Get it nice and cold. So once I finish the boil, I'll just pour cold water straight into the kettle, the digiboil, to cool it down, and that will allow me to transfer straight into my fermenter, 23 litres, and probably in the fermenter for about 2 weeks, and then in the keg for another couple of weeks, and then hopefully a tasting. So hopefully I'll get some brew footage along the way, as I've done in the past, and you'll see that in the rest of this video. Cheers.
Okay, as you can see, I've just got the grain here in the bag in the digiboil. The water is at 67 degrees. Just a couple of quick things as I'm giving this a stir, trying to get all the grains wet. A few things that I neglected to mention in the introduction. First of all, I did say, of course, that it's a coffee milk stout, but I didn't say anything about coffee. The plan with the coffee is what I've done before. So 23 litre batch, I use 1 gram of coffee per litre. So I'll do 23 grams of coffee. I will cold brew it just using a French press. And basically I add that as a dry hop. It's like a dry hop addition 2 days before cold crashing. So I'll just quickly take the lid off the fermenter, pour the coffee in, give it 48 hours in there, and then I'll start the cold crash. That's worked well for me in the past, so I'm happy to keep using that method. The other thing is just a shout out and a thanks again to Little John. I did say that I took some inspiration from his milk stout recipe, but also I did send him an early version of my recipe, and he was kind enough to provide some suggestions and feedback, so thanks again to him. All right, we'll just keep stirring this for a bit longer, get it all wet, and then we'll have 45 minutes for the mash. Cheers. All right, the 45-minute mash is done, so what I'm going to do in a moment is pull out the grain bag. I generally give it a pretty good squeeze to get as much of the liquid out as possible, just because I don't want to lose too much volume prior to the boil. So I'll do that, then I will add the dry ingredients. I'll turn off the element, add the dry ingredients, make sure they're all mixed in well, and then start bringing it up to the boil and get ready for the first hop addition. Okay, that's what we are left with now that the grain bag has been removed. Gave it a really good squeeze, so got most of the water out. The element's off, so just starting to add the dry ingredients now. This is the oat extract. That's 200 grams of that. And this is the first part of the light dry malt. And the lactose. All right, so as you saw, all the dry ingredients are in. Turn the element back on, start bringing it up to the boil, and just giving it a good stir to dissolve as much of that as we can. If any of you have used light dry malt extract yourself, then you'd know how challenging it can be to work with sometimes, just in terms of how it clumps up and it's such a fine powder, it goes everywhere and everything. But anyway, that will eventually dissolve. We'll come back when we get to the boil. All right, as you can see, we're approaching the boil. Managed to get everything, all those dry ingredients dissolved. I pulled out the whisk, which is what I used to use when I was doing tins as well. So I've just got this first hop addition ready to go as well, which is 25 grams of East Kent Goldings. That's going in for the full 60 minutes, and then we'll have another 25 grams with 20 minutes to go. All right, we've just hit boiling, so in they go. Okay, 20 minutes to go, so another 25 grams of East Kent Goldings. I've also got some
some yeast nutrient here. I'm going to throw in a little bit of that in a couple of minutes. Just if you're a person who's thinking of trying out this style of brewing or is new to it, just a few tips in terms of efficiency. What can you do while you're waiting for your water to come up to temperature, for example, and what do you do during a 60-minute boil while you're waiting for the next hop addition? Well, it's pretty simple, really. Use the time to prepare for the next step. Get some cleaning done. So you might have seen I had some bowls and things out that I used to measure out some of the dry ingredients. Clean them up. Once you've done the mash and you're waiting for the water temp to come up, or during the boil, go and rinse out the grain bag. That's a bit of a pain, to be honest. Actually, if you are a brew in the bag or brew in a bag person, and you've got any tips to rinse out the grain bag, then please drop a comment, because that's probably the thing that is the most time consuming and annoying, to be honest. So with 20 minutes to go, I've already got sanitizer in my fermenter, so that's ready to go. In a few minutes time, I will make sure that I've got my cold water ready to go, so I can get that in here as soon as the time's up to start cooling down the wort. And yeah, just it's common sense, really. Plan ahead and always be one step ahead. That saves you time in the long run. Right, just transferring from the digiboil down here into the fermenter. Added cold spring water up to 23 litres, and then just going in here, because of what I assume will be a little bit of shrub and stuff left at the bottom of the kettle. I might need to add just a little bit more water once we're in. We might not get the full 23 litres, but that's okay. And then we'll see what temperature we get to, take a gravity reading, and work out when we can pitch the yeast. Cheers. All right, so we've got our 23 litres, or actually it's just below 23 litres in the fermenter, in the fermentation fridge. We're sitting at around 30 degrees at the moment, so it's still too warm to pitch the yeast. I've taken a gravity reading, and yes, there would need to be a minor correction due to the temperature, but it's not too bad. And it was bang on 1050, so spot on with the recipe, and a really smooth brew day. So we'll pitch the yeast when it cools down. It'll take a few hours, and then, as I said in the earlier on, just let it go, and then a couple of days before cold crash, we'll dry hop, so to speak, with the cold brew coffee. Other than that, we will see you hopefully for a tasting in 4 to 6 weeks, depending on when this gets posted. Cheers. Okay, here we are on day 10. So fermentation has well and truly finished. I've just taken a gravity reading, and the final gravity is 1018, which is a little bit higher than I was hoping, to be honest. I was hoping to get down around 1016. So anyway, with a starting gravity of 1050, final gravity of 1018, we're looking at about a 4.2% alcohol by volume on this beer. Because it's day 10, it's time to add the coffee. And I know that there are a lot of different ways of adding coffee to beer, and also different approaches to the timing of adding coffee as well. I was actually having a chat online with Tube Dino's, who's just done a coffee milk stout as well. He called it a flat white stout. It looks delicious. If you haven't checked out his channel, then make sure that you do that, Tube Dino's. He added whole coffee beans to his, and he was commenting that he thought there was a little bit of a negative impact on head formation and retention due to the oils in the coffee beans. As I said in the introduction, I'm going to be doing cold brewed coffee. So here it is here. just in a normal French press, 23 grams of ground coffee. It's just the normal coffee that I use for my daily coffee in the mornings. But I do take some extra precautions when it comes to cleaning and sanitizing. So make sure I clean the French press properly with sodium percarbonate, and I do sanitize it as well. 23 gram batch of beer, so 23 grams of the ground coffee with spring water, just sat in the fridge for 24 hours, and I just pushed down the plunger a few minutes ago. And in a moment, I won't be able to do it unfortunately on camera, but I will just quickly take the lid off and then quickly but carefully pour the coffee into the fermenter and then get the lid back on. It's going to sit there for about 48 hours, then we'll start the cold crash. This portion of the video is being filmed on a Monday in the early hours of Monday morning. So come Wednesday, I'll start the cold crash in readiness to keg on the weekend. Cheers.